topic. As with other speakers, my presentation is going to be in two parts. Firstly, I'm going to look at the different types of junction and the hierarchy. And looking around Athens yesterday afternoon, I must admit in more English weather than Greek, there are very great similarities in junction types. I guess it's the psyche, the way that English drivers are different to the way Greeks drive, that make the way the junctions operate the reason why they look different. I don't know. Anyway, what I am going to talk about in the sort of second half of my first presentation is the changes that we've been making in recent years in the UK that's allowed us then to focus on the second part of my presentation, which is the provision of vulnerable users. Not only provision, but lowering the risk so that the provision we do provide is a lot safer for those users. So junctions, yes, they are one of the most critical elements in the highway transport system. They are the pinch points where delays, accidents and emissions tend to be concentrated. The aim of a junction is to facilitate smooth interaction between opposing bodies of traffic. And the type and nature of the junction selected for a given location should be based on the complexity of the routes meeting at that location and the volumes of traffic that are involved. The various types of junction do provide a hierarchy. There is a natural hierarchy of things. They do cater for ever-increasing levels of traffic. And I suppose in the simplistic terms, what are we looking at are non-priority junctions where there are some level of priority depending on the road types that meet at that junction. Junctions that then have traffic signal control, and ultimately grade separated junctions. But because I'm focusing on urban situations, and certainly in the UK, it's very rare these days that we have grade separation in an urban environment. If you went back 20 years in a city like Birmingham in the Midlands, where one would argue that the car ruled, there was a whole network of high-speed roads with grade separation. What has happened over the past 10 years is a re-evaluation of that balance, taking the priority away from providing fast-moving traffic within an urban environment and redressing that balance. So you'll see that many of those roads are now being downgraded and the grade separation being removed. So what this diagram really just demonstrates that whilst that even with specific types of junction, whether it be T, Y or cross roads, there's a whole vast range of different types of junction you can have. And you know, we've already talked about roundabouts and whether it should be 4-arm, 5-arm, 6-arm, how do we cater for it? And I think it's testament to the abilities and the professionalism of traffic engineers that we can come up with amazing layouts for junctions to deal with the different types of node that we're encountering. And that diagram just really shows a vast range of things that we could come up against within a historic, complex urban environment. This is a very simple figure. It comes out of one of our standards in the UK. The diagram is a simple assessment method really to identify initially the type of junction you should be looking at based on two simple factors. The flow of traffic on what you term as the major road and the opposing flow on the minor road. So through this simple figure you can do a first estimate of the type of junction that you might be using. So what I'm going to look at, as I've already explained, I'm just going to look at four basic types here for this presentation. I'm going to talk a bit about junctions without any designated priority. Go on then to talk a bit about priority junctions. Priority junctions with channelization or signalization, and then I'm also going to touch again on roundabouts. And there's a very good reason for that, because we have a lot of roundabouts in the UK, and it's worth spending time explaining why and what the benefits are. So here is a simple non-priority junction, a site in London. I popped out the camera and snapped this not too long ago. There are thousands of junctions like this in any urban city. This is normally they're a simple T, where the flows are so low that no designated priority is necessary. And certainly in residential areas, these could also be Y junctions or crossroads. One of the previous speakers whispered in my ear earlier when the speaker was talking about junctions and rural junctions. He was saying, in the UK you've outlawed crossroads. Well, yes, we have, but that's in a rural location. Certainly on our rural roads where the speeds are higher, we have stopped building what we would term crossroads. We now tend to create a junction where it's not straight across, it's what we call staggered crossroads. But again, in urban environments where you've got a historic layout that's been there in many instances, just like Athens for centuries, it's very difficult to lose these crossroads. And again, providing that they're in an environment where it's very low traffic volumes, then they're quite safe. So then we move on to what I would term simple priority junction. And here, this is actually an instance where we've got a staggered crossroads. You can see one road coming in here, one road coming in here, and this marking here is telling the driver approaching here that this is a priority junction, that this route along here has the priority, and he must give way to traffic on that road. Very simple, but again very effective. Again, thousands of examples within a city like London. They work very well. The only time that we need to step up and increase the level of control on that type of junction is when the flows on this arm and this arm start matching the flow on this arm. So, here we are, signal priority. Historically, priority junctions, as I said, can range from T's, staggered T's, to crossroads, where placing them under signal control is necessary, generally because the flows on one of the arms, one of the routes, is significantly higher than the other route, and as a result, congestion is occurring, or indeed, we find that we've got a serious accident problem here because of the speed and nature of the accidents that are occurring. So again, we would impose signal control as a way of controlling the movements of that junction. And this is a very, very simple signal control junction. We now move on to roundabouts, and what I'm going to show here is I've got pictures of 4 different types of roundabout that we generally use in the UK. There's been a lot of talk this morning about turbo roundabouts. We don't use them. Now, there's a simple reason for that. We've been populating our roads with roundabouts for 60 plus years now. Our drivers are very used to using roundabouts. We can get larger flows through our roundabouts because British drivers drive them completely differently to any other country in the world that I've been to. I've experienced driving roundabouts in France, Germany, America, and our drivers approach that type of roundabout completely differently than any other country in the world. In fact, I would say they probably approach around and use a roundabout more like Italians use the road, which is grit their teeth, put their foot down and go for the gap. That's simply how it works. We can get a lot more flow through a junction because they're used to that approach. So, yes, they were introduced in the early 1900s. About 1910, I think, the first record we have of any sort of roundabout in the UK. And since that date, they have developed into a safe and effective junction design that can be used for all categories of road. And because the UK is a relatively small and densely populated country, and its road network is complex and journeys diverse, it suits roundabouts very well. And we go from, what we would term a roundabout goes from what you see up here, which is the mini roundabout, which again we can impose on a junction with minimal changes to the layout by just painting a spot on the road. And again, because our drivers are used to negotiating and using a roundabout, you paint a spot in the middle of the road and dome it a little bit and perhaps put a little circulating arrows round, and on the advance put a roundabout sign, drivers will use it as a roundabout. So you turn what otherwise perhaps was a non-priority road or a prioritised major minor into a road where whatever arm the drivers are approaching, they will heed that it's a roundabout. They will slow down. They will take heed of drivers to the right-hand side of them. They will yield to circulating traffic simply because they see a circle painted on the road. So these are the two basic forms of roundabout, the mini here and what we would term the standard or normal roundabout, where the central island is actually a raised medium. We then move on to relatively recent advancements, I suppose, probably from the 1970s onwards. We started looking at the possibility on really busy roundabouts of signalising them. Now, again, in the UK, roundabouts work best on roads where the flows on all arms are balanced, there's a similar level, so that you've got general flow from each arm coming into the roundabout, and you create this steady movement and this gap acceptance. Where all of a sudden you go to a situation where one route dominates a roundabout, then you get a breakdown in that flow, you get a dominance, and it makes the minor flow arms, makes it very difficult for the traffic to enter. So in that situation, we would start by introducing signalisation. Now again, very interestingly, you can, I don't know if you can quite see this, but this is this junction, this roundabout has been signalised. Again, it's a slightly large form because we've actually got it's partial grade separation. But again, what we found, historically found, is that when you signalise a roundabout, it's always best to keep one arm free flowing. It becomes increasingly more difficult if you signalise all arms of that junction in terms of the signal control and getting the operation to work Obviously these days with very advanced micro processors and signalling techniques, we can achieve it. We achieve it on a regular basis, but it does make it far more complicated. And then finally over here, again something that we've been working on since probably the early 80s, is on the wider central areas of we're actually giving lane priority. And this is, in a way, is a basic form of the turbo roundabout, in that we're directing people to enter in a specific lane, onto a specific lane, and follow that lane to an exit. And we term that spiral markings. So here's the roundabout's good points. They are a relatively safe form of junction. Again, we've got stats going back many years that demonstrate implementing roundabouts at accident black spot junction does reduce the overall accident severity and rate. However, they are not particularly good for two-wheel vehicles. I could spend half an hour explaining why, but clearly we haven't got time to do that. But it is about drivers approaching and not seeing cyclists or power two-wheelers because of where they are on the roundabout, the position and the position where the driver sits at the give-way line or the yield line before he enters the roundabout. So those are those I've picked out a few of the bad points. Whilst we can apply signal control, introducing pedestrian facilities as part of that signal control can often be difficult. Here's an example of a mini roundabout, and this is the type of thing that we would do for pedestrians. This particular mini roundabout was put in. This is a residential area. It did have a very bad accident rate. There was issues because of the way that the sun moves across the junction. It was particularly bad at certain times of the day. Put in the mini roundabout solved that accident problem. And you can see that the central island is slightly domed and painted, and it works perfectly well. This is what we would term a normal roundabout, and here you can see this raised central island and traffic moving around it. As I've said earlier, it operates on gap acceptance principles. All approach vehicles are expected to slow to the approach and give way to circulating traffic. And finally, here's a picture of a signal-controlled roundabout. Again, a fairly large one in a central urban area. I think this one was in Nottingham. But again, again you can just about see the signal. You can see the elements of signal control here. And this is one of the things that we have to put on some of our junctions. This marking we call yellow box marking, and drivers, even though they've got a green signal here, if their exit isn't clear across that area, they have to wait before they can enter. Again, it's a way of stopping the whole junction blocking up. And then we move on to even more complex signal control, and I've highlighted here a couple of UK documents that talk about the signal control, the design of signal junctions, and go into extremely large and complex layouts. This is what the standard deals with. It talks about visibility requirements and lane widths. It talks about non-motorised user provision and signal equipment provision and positioning. And again, that's an extract from it, just showing a simple node of a large junction and the sort of equipment that we would put in, the lane designation that we would give, and separate turning movements away from the central part of the junction. If we move to the 8902 document, that talks about very large signal control junctions, types of, and these are generic layouts that the document covers. Single node crossroads where we've got multiple entry lanes. A signal belt, which is I've never seen this built anywhere else other than the UK, but it's a combination of a very small circulatory area in the middle and signalised approach lanes. Again, it's a peculiarity to the UK, and for some reason UK drivers can drive around it. I think overseas visitors do have a bit of a problem with it, but again, that's British drivers for you. We seem to manage to drive around most things. Signalised roundabouts, it covers. Now this is what we call hamburger or a throughbout, where we've taken a roundabout, we've signalised it. We still have problems with flows. So the main route we take right through the centre of the roundabout, and we have a storage capacity area in the centre. So we give the drivers the opportunity, if you were turning right, you would go around the junction and down. If you were going straight ahead, then you head straight through the junction. Again, it works, it increases the capacity, but it is a very complex signal control. And finally, where we do it both ways, it's very difficult to produce a generic design and you think it works. But we have got a number of instances in the UK and cities where this type of junction does work. And again, it may be a peculiarity of the British that we're able to navigate this type of junction, but believe me, we seem to be able to. So that's a quick run through the types of junctions you would see in an urban area. What I want to talk about now is how we're starting to change things to give us, especially in urban and residential areas, reducing the risk for those more vulnerable users. UK government published a document back in 2007 focusing on the design of residential streets. Some of you may know of it, it's called Manual for Streets, and the strap line down there is about putting the community back on our streets. The document was about giving back the streets to our communities, stopping them just being for cars. So this was the basic aim of the document. To create a sense of community, to give streets back to the people, to create attractive places where people could live and enjoy life, to provide a safe environment for all, and to deliver inclusive design. What do I mean by inclusive design? Well, that's really the bullet points that we put in the document. We talk about placing people at the heart of the design process, acknowledging diversity and difference, offering choice where a single solution cannot accommodate all users, and providing the flexibility in use. But ultimately, it's not just about the road, it's about the buildings and the environment around the road, create a sense of place. And I'm sure anyone who's in Athens during the summer sitting out on a roadside cafe knows the sort of thing I'm talking about. So what does the approach offer? It talks about creating a permeable layout based on pedestrian desire lines. It takes the main street as the focus for the development and providing access to local services. What we're trying to do with this document is encourage people to walk or cycle to a local place, to shop, to drink coffee or whatever, to pick up a newspaper, rather than jumping in their cars and driving. It's about reducing the dependence on cars, and also there's a real push on the health agenda here. It's about getting people out there, back out there of all age groups, to make them more active. To do that, you've got to create a road layout that encourages calm vehicle speeds, and I'll show you a slide in a moment that will explain that. And if you do create that calmed area, what you then can get out is you can get your children out, back out on the streets playing. Instead of locked in their bedrooms, playing on their Xbox or whatever, they're actually back out in the street, playing real games with other children. And as I've already said, it can contribute hugely to the health agenda. So here's a simple layout, a simple figure that demonstrates what I'm talking about. You can see if at 40 mile an hour, we talk about 40 mile an hour, if a pedestrian has an impact with a vehicle, 80% of pedestrians die. At 20 mile an hour, if a pedestrian has an impact with a vehicle, there's a 95% chance that he will survive, or they will survive. So it's about creating a lower speed environment to lower the risk of injury. And this is what this document's about. Now certainly there needed to be a lot of work involved in that, and there was the evidence base was needed so that we could change our current practice. We could change the culture and shift away from adopting standards and living by those standards, and introducing a risk assessment approach to our design. And you won't really be able to see this too well, but they're in the presentation, and obviously you'll be able to view them all at a later date. But the research showed that when we were looking at historic layouts where the visibility wasn't necessarily up to standard, or where the road widths didn't quite meet our standards, we could actually demonstrate that there were lower speeds. The drivers actually drove slower because it goes back to this sense of the road that they're on, their environment in. And if they feel a little bit risky, so they slow down. We tested this idea on a modelling based on a program that our research laboratory created. It's a network approach based on years of collecting accident data for different types of junctions and feeding them into a network of road layout. And we found that this permeable layout with lower than standard junction visibilities and narrow road widths actually gave us well, it certainly didn't make the accident risk worse. It was at or lower than a full design standard would achieve. So in conclusion, the evidence suggested to us that we could control driver speed by looking at the environment that we were offering them. However, it did say that it placed more requirement on professional judgment, but we felt that our design engineers were up to that. We also looked at a large range of operational junctions, some that conformed to existing design standards, some that didn't, to establish if there was any correlation between substandard visibility and increased accident numbers. And again, there was no direct correlation, we just couldn't find anything there. Certainly on urban networks we found that and in residential areas, there was less risk with providing below standard visibility requirements. That was some of the areas that the research covered, and the types of junction we used. and those were the conclusions that we came out with. So we were then able to reassess our guidance on braking distances and stopping sight distances, to the point where, as a result, we were able to look at our visibility space and offer up different advice than we have been in past documents. And we've ended up with a table that shows quite considerably different SSDs than previously used. We've now moved on a step further. The organisation that I work for, the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation, in cooperation with the Department of Transport, have now taken those principles that was developed for manual streets and looked through case studies how they can be applied to streets outside what we were talking about. If you remember, go back, Manual for Streets, the first document was looking at residential areas. Now we wanted to widen the scope of those principles and use them in other streets. It is about a place and movement function. We were looking at the different types of road and how one road, clearly the key, you know, on a motorway, the key function is a movement function, but it still has a place function. You still want it to be an enjoyable ride for the passengers. And you get right down onto residential streets and high streets, and you know, the place function is a lot higher. So there is a balance there to be played. But some of the second document, some of the types of streets and roads it covers is towns and city centres, multifunctional streets and places. And here I am talking about areas where it's single surface and pedestrians have exactly the same priority as road vehicles. It's looking at what we call urban extensions, which are routes out of city centres. And we talk about arterial routes and high streets through our market towns and our smaller conurbations. So that's what the second document covers. This is probably the most important slide of this whole presentation. What this is showing is the front page of a website that, again, my organisation in cooperation with the Department for Transport has developed. It's called the Transport Advice Portal. When you access this website, what you're able to do is filter down through various topics to all the documents that are currently used within the UK. We've got over 1,100 documents linked to this site. They're not loaded, the links are there, they take you to where those links sit on other organisations' websites. So if you really are interested in pedestrians, you can go in there, you can select pedestrians, you can select standards or legislation and filter that list, and you'll get a list of links that will take you to those documents that explain in greater detail than I've been able to do so far exactly what our standards are based on. And there's some key useful links, so that again, when you access this presentation after today, those are live links that will take you directly to that website, directly to our transport advisory leaflets that are produced by the Department of Transport on a vast range of topics that cover urban roads, to our design standards for our rural and motorway network, which is the PMRB, and for the two documents that I've just mentioned, which is Manual for Streets and Manual for Streets 2. That's the end of my first part of my presentation. What I will be coming back to talk about later on is how we provide for vulnerable users on that range of junctions that I talked about earlier. Thank you very much.
Όπως θα ξέρετε από Ήδη θα ισχύει επίσημα από τον Οκτώβριο η εφαρμογή της οδηγίας που αφορά τον έλεγχο οδικής ασφάλειας, το Safety Audit, το οποίο δημιουργεί κάποια δεδομένα, τουλάχιστον ξεκινάει από τα ευρωπαϊκά δίκτυα, αλλά αφήνει και στις χώρες, τις εθνικές, να αποφασίσουν τι θα κάνουν τα υπόλοιπα δίκτυα. Εν πάση περιπτώσει, υποχρεωτικά για τα ευρωπαϊκά δίκτυα, προαιρετικά για το υπόλοιπο δίκτυο, γεννά κάποια δεδομένα. Τι θα γίνει με αυτό το safety audit, πώς θα εφαρμοστεί, τι χρειάζεται, ποιες είναι οι προϋποθέσεις τους. Εδώ θα ακούσουμε τις επόμενες δύο παρουσιάσεις. Ο καθηγητής Μπρανόλτε θα μας παρουσιάσει την εκπαίδευση κάποιου ειδικού πάνω στα θέματα του safety audit, όπως εφαρμόζεται στην Γερμανία. Και έχει ενδιαφέρον διότι και η Γερμανία καθυστέρησε να βάλει αυτή τη μεθοδολογία στον έλεγχο των μελετών. Επομένως, ενδιαφέρει να μάθουμε στην πρώτη ομιλία τι είναι αυτός ο ειδικός, τι πρέπει να ξέρει, πώς εκπαιδεύεται, πρέπει να υπάρχει ειδική διαδικασία για αυτούς τους ελεγκτές και θα μας πει όλη αυτή τη διαδικασία πώς αναπτύσσεται στη Γερμανία και ποιες είναι οι προϋποθέσεις. Και αμέσως μετά ο κ. Κρίσπαρ θα μας πει πώς αυτή η διαδικασία ελέγχου εφαρμόζεται σε κόμβους. Είναι λοιπόν μια διαδικασία που θα μας απασχολήσει στο άμεσο μέλλον. Ήδη στις παραχωρήσεις αυτό εφαρμόζεται και ελπίζουμε και η δημόσια διοίκηση πολύ γρήγορα να ξεκινήσει τις διαδικασίες, διότι έχει ήδη καθυστερήσει. Να σκεφτεί κανείς, και θα τα ακούσετε, τι διαδικασίες χρειάζεται για να πιστοποιηθεί αυτός ο ελεγκτής, ο οποίος πρέπει να είναι πιστοποιημένος, δεν μπορεί να είναι κανένας. Και αυτό παίρνει πολύ χρόνο. Επομένως, ήδη είμαστε καθυστερημένοι και δεν ξέρω η δημόσια διοίκηση πώς θα αντιμετωπίσει το πρόβλημα εφαρμογής της διρεκτήβας.
Thank you, Professor Posianos. Thank you for inviting us to present our results and our procedures for road safety audits. Thank you for introduction of this topic. We have for our presentation prepared two parts. The first parts I will show you something about procedures in Germany. And the second part will be presented by my scientific assistant, Mr. Grisper, including also real-life training experiences and examples. excuse me for delay. The road safety audit is established in many European countries. First, we recognize the road safety audits in Great Britain, 1990. The other countries are followed or are still following. In Germany, we have experiences with road safety now about 10 years. In 2002, we introduced our guideline for road safety audits, ESA's abbreviated description. Before this period, we had very controversial discussions about road auditing. Contra-arguments and pro-arguments. For instance, one contra-argument: why do we need an additional bureaucracy step in our planning procedures, which last long and which are sometimes already very complicated? Do we really need another step? That was the question. Or pro, do we really provide best solutions for traffic safety? The results from this discussion lead to this guideline. We see the debate won by the pro-arguments, because I think the breakthrough was that we conducted a lot of test audits from real planning documents, and we found a lot of deficits concerning traffic safety. So I think to compare road safety audits between different countries is very important and is necessary, but the road safety audit should embed it into the planning procedures, the national planning procedures, design procedures, and should be embedded also in the kind of safety culture in these countries. So I think road safety audits in Europe differs from country to country, depends on national peculiarities in the several countries, include different phases of a project lifetime cycle. Where do we do these audits? We do it in the whole planning and design process, but we have no audits for existing roads, for instance. In Germany, the road safety audit is a formalized, systematic and independent investigation. We'll give some explanations about. To identify safety deficits in the design and planning phases of roads, to achieve different objectives, for instance, to design roads as safe as possible, to minimize the risk of accidents as much as possible, to improve road safety on roads significantly, and to ensure, last but not least, the quality of road design in the field of road safety as a part of a comprehensive quality management process in design and planning. Audit is also embedded in this kind of quality process from my point of view. Formalized means it's a standalone part within the planning process of roads with own rules for responsible authorities, road designers and safety auditors. Systematic, it's a very fiable and consistent method. Independent, neither the responsible authorities nor the road designers are allowed to give instructions to the safety auditors. We need as much as possible independence in these persons who do the audits for the auditors. The road safety audit should be integrated. In Germany, we have 4 phases in the whole planning procedures for a project. Audit phase number 1, preliminary planning, preliminary design, detailed design, and traffic opening, the last phase just before, some day days or some days after traffic opening of the new road infrastructure. So I think we have the following participants in the road safety audit process: as the client, the contractor, the road designer. Road design is done in Germany, for instance, by private consulting designing companies or by the road authority itself sometimes. And we have on the right side the road safety auditor. It should be an auditor, internal auditor, who is working in the departments of road authority, or an external auditor. He's working, for instance, in a private consulting company. There should be, as I told already, no direct relations between the left and the right part. So I think the procedure for a road safety audit is as follows. At first, the client awards the auditor. The client hand over all documents, planning, design documents, to the auditor. The auditor starts an independent inspection, if necessary. We do some site inspections in the later stage of plannings. The auditor produces a written audit report. That is very important, I think, a written report. Engineering language, I think. What kind of work steps are included? Check up of the completeness of the handed over planning documents at first. Auditing of the planning documents by virtual using the traffic facility from the side of the different road users, not only by drivers but also for pedestrians and others. Check up of the design of situations with important safety functions, impacts on safety. Check up of the planning concerning incorrect using of traffic facility. Incorrect using, we have seen already some pictures in some other presentations. Self-control by using a checklist introduced in guideline. Nearly all guidelines in the international context include such kind of checklists. But the checklists, from my point of view, have the purpose to help the auditor not to forget any item. Who walks through this check-up of the planning on location. In later phases, I think it's very important that prove to be very worthwhile. Preparation of a result protocol with a document of photos, that helps also very much. And preparation of the audit report, as I told already, with a statement of project data and safety deficits. So I think the auditor then as the next step hands over the audit report to the client. If necessary, there are some open questions. Auditor and designer discuss the audit result. And the client now decides on audit results. The auditor has a sectoral view on problems, a view concerning only traffic safety. The client has to take into consideration all other aspects on realization of a new infrastructure. Environmental aspects, for instance, capacity aspects, for instance. The auditor is responsible only for the safety aspects. Now on the left hand you see the client considers the changes as necessary. The design will be changed. The client does not consider the changes as necessary because of his consideration of all other aspects. The design will be approved. So I think there's a after this determination of this phase of an audit. And it is going through the whole 4 steps in planning and design. We have had also controversial discussions concerning the additional costs of an audit. This audit is not, you don't get an audit for no money, I think. It costs, it's right. Depends on the size of the project, depends on the project phase, in which phase is audit done, depends on the necessity of a walkthrough, and depends on the quality of the project documents. The audit takes between 1 or 5 days work for the auditor. The auditor don't start an alternative planning, a competitive planning. We have only to focus on deficits. So I think 10 or 5 days, that is our experiences concerning doing an audit. Nevertheless, there are also some further costs, administration, redesigning, additional building costs, if there are selections between different cross-sections, for instance. And all in all, the audit is about, from our experience, 1% of the whole building costs. When we have to consider the outcomes from road safety audits, we have to compare benefit and costs. The benefits are high compared to the costs of road safety audits. That's our experiences. Reduced accident costs are a multiple of the costs of the conduction of road safety audits. There are some further benefits: avoidance of additional plannings, or rebuilding later, or reduction of cost by proposing alternative solutions for road facilities. For instance, to minimize the number of junctions in a bypass road. Things like this. So I think the next step was, who's ready to do these audits? Who is able to do these audits? And who has the professional knowledge to conduct these audits? For the first time in Germany, in our guidelines, there's a definition that we need additional trainings for engineers to become an auditor. First time in 50 years, I think. The training to become an auditor is a compromise, always, between a short course, maybe half a day or a full day, and a full study program. In order that what we do in Germany to conduct the training alongside the full-time work of engineers. Let me give some more information about this. That means the training should include information about current safety-related finding and research. For instance, turbo roundabouts, application of guidelines, analysis of typical safety deficits, it's a kernel, analysis of real road planning materials under the aspects of road safety, and conducting training audits under supervision. So I think the training process should include short courses as presents, as I told already, intermediate homework, conducted own training audits, and roadside inspections. 2 specific curricula for training courses for outside and inside built-up areas have been developed. in Germany, which have been used in several federal states and which can be described as follows. Training groups, 7 to 15 people. Training phases, 7 phases. Duration, all around approximately 6 or 7 months. Finalization, university certificate, which expiring after 3 years. Post-certificate, own activities in auditing and participation in professional meetings. That means the auditor should be very near to the safety development, safety areas. There's a possibility of a renewal of the certificate after 3 years with the personal examination. So I think these are typical for a 7-phase training course at our university. First phase, qualification seminar, road safety audit, rural roads. We speak about also describing figures, accident costs and accident densities and things like this, defining road safety, for instance. They have to learn about these figures. Preparation of 2 audit reports in the 2nd phase for rural roads. 3rd phase, cross-town links, on-site inspections. 4th phase, preparation of an audit report for a cross-town link. 5th phase, motorways, discussion of audit reports from the preceding phases. Preparation of audit reports for 1 cross-town link and 1 motorway. And in the 7th phase, discussion of audit reports of the 6th phase, examination, so personal examination, and the handover of the certificate. So I think these curricula were developed by a partnership of German university professors, for instance, Mr. Rebold also, in traffic, road and design, and have been supported by relevant German institutions in the traffic safety sector. For instance, the German Road Safety Council or the German Road and Transport Research Association. The training courses based on the curriculum should be understood, from our point of view, as a landmark for high-quality advanced training at university level. You know, Federal Republic of Germany, the federal states have a lot of degrees of freedom to organize their own training, but this is the approved high-quality training for auditors. These curricula have been the basis for a new guideline, leaflet for training and certification of road safety auditors. This leaflet, edited by the mentioned association, FGSV, and is the actual basis for training courses. Besides, the Federal Highway Research Institute, the BUST, registered all institutions which offer training courses according to this filter, to this standard, to this level, quality level of training. And the BUST also publishes a list of all road safety auditors having a valid certificate in Germany. The leaflet specifies the following requirements for a road safety auditor. At first, we have some basic qualifications to become a road safety auditor. We need these basic qualifications because we have a period of 6 months available alongside full work. So I think we need a completed university education or comparable knowledge level, several years of experience, practical experience in the field of road design or an area with road-related safety examinations, which are basic qualifications. And in the training we have on the one hand the motorways and rural roads, and on the other hand the major urban roads and residential roads inside built-up areas. There are two universities very active in this training. These are my university and these are the colleague from the Bergische Universität Wuppertal for the residential areas. Requirements to be a road safety auditor: participation at annual meetings of German auditors. We have it next month, for instance, in Weimar. The conduction of audits, at least 4 audits per 3 years, and renewal certification after 3 years by participating at an examination. Current stage of training courses for road safety auditors. Nearly 140 auditors for road outside built-up areas and cross-town links, this included, have been trained according to the regulations above at VPT at Harvard University. Now they are doing practical audit work in the offices of road administration, as I mentioned it, internal auditors, or as their own business as external auditors on behalf of road administrations. Besides, about 90 auditors have been trained for roads inside built-up areas at the Bergische University Wuppertal. There are some more materials available because of the limited time. I think for the first part, I thank you very much for audience, and we can start just after this with the second part, give some more details concerning the training. Thank you very much.
It's my part. First, thank you very much to Mr. Sanarias for inviting me to give this presentation with also with the topic safety aspects and safety audits of single level sections. At first, I want to give you a very small introduction of myself because that you have the background I have. I'm chair member. I'm chair member of the chair of Mr. Pronova, and I'm responsible for the organization of the safety audit courses at our university, and I'm responsible for some exercises, and I'm involved in some other other projects in the field of road safety. Okay, Mr. John Small already mentioned it. There are elemental types of operation of the single level intersections. So I'm talking about these 5 ones. There are some other ones, but the topic is single level intersection. So we have in Germany the priority to right. That means, I don't know if it's available here in Greece. That means if you come to the junction and another car driver comes from right, then you have to stop and wait until the car has passed, and then you can cross the junction. Then you have yield signs or stop signs. Of course, it's known. Then we have signalized junctions. And there we made differences between protect left turns and without protect left turns. So I think Mr. Lippold mentioned it. It's a high difference between the accident cost rates between these two types of junction. And then the roundabouts, we already mentioned it today. There is a compact roundabout, mini roundabout, and in Germany, the big ones are not state of the art. An audit of junction is very yeah, very difficult. It's very complex. So Germany, we have many guidelines which has to regard. So in the next 3 slides, I will show you some guidelines which are responsible for the auditing of single level intersections. Means responsible not only for the audit, also responsible for the design of the intersections. So the first one is a guideline for design of single level intersections, but yeah, the guidelines are involved in a process. So this guideline is not valid for every single level intersections anymore, because the next one, the guideline for design of urban roads, are now valid for the roads inside built-up areas, and the guideline for design of single level intersections are only valid for the streets outside of built-up areas. So and then there is a guideline for design of roundabouts. So if you plan or auditing a roundabout, you have to regard this guideline, of course. And so if the intersection is signalized, there's a guideline for traffic signal systems. Then a pedestrian guideline is available, so especially for these street members and also for pedestrian facilities. And the last 2 ones I mentioned here is the guideline for sorry. No, it's wrong. The last one is a handbook for this dimension of road infrastructure, or manual for dimensioning of road infrastructure. So if you plan or design a junction or a street, a junction, you have minimum requirements you have to expect. So there, of course, the recognizability. That means if you come to the junction, you have to see them. You have to know that there is a junction. So you have to see them. Then the comprehensibility means, for example, for the right of way. So if it's very complex, the junction, and you don't know what it means. Do I have the right of way or the car driver next to me? Then then it's possible that it comes to an accident. Then, of course, usability, trafficability means that, for example, heavy vehicles want to pass this junction, then it must be able that they can use it. Yes, of course. And last but not least, the uniformity means if you have a street with several junctions, then it's really good. I mean, that one and after another junction is from the same type. So that car users known from the junction before that there is a similar one. And I've shown you the different types of junctions. So it's very dangerous, of course, when you have a junction without protected left turn, and this junction is after a junction with protected left turn, so it might be really dangerous because the car drivers think, oh, I'm protected, but they weren't. Okay. Mr. Granada always mentioned it, there are different audit phases, and within these audit phases there are points of evaluation you can do. It's good if within every planning phase an audit would be done, because the deficits you found, are, and if they have to change, it's easier to do it in a very early phase and not right before opening the street. So here I've I've mentioned the points of evaluation of single level intersections, and in the preliminary planning there you can change the number and the location of the junction. Maybe the existing of the junction isn't necessary, so you can lost them, you can put them away, and there's the accident point, so the possible accident point is not available anymore. Then of course the type of the junction, we mentioned it, and yeah, the cycle and pedestrian infrastructure, if they are available or not, if they are necessary or not, then you can change this within this planning phase. After that, the preliminary design. Of course, you can change the other points again, or if this audit would be the first audit in this planning process, you can, or you have to evaluate these points. But there are other points who are extra to the first three ones. So, for example, the exact locations of the junction concerning the vertical or horizontal alignment. Yes, the design, the dimension of the single lanes, the design and the dimension of the cycle and pedestrian facilities, facilities for public transport, the existing of traffic islands and so on. Of course, you have to prove if the heavy vehicles can pass the junction, so proof of the vehicle swept pass, and you have to check if there's an intervisibility between the different road users. So if the car can see maybe the pedestrian or the cyclist. The third planning phase is a detailed design. So it's possible to check if the terrain of the junction, the terrain of the road is available, if markings and signings and road lighting is correct and according to the guidelines, and you can check a signal layout plan if it is a signalized intersection. And yes, the last audit phase would be able in the traffic opening phase, means short before the traffic is opened or short afterwards. So there you have to check if the realization, the implementation of the junction is correct, or is the intervisibility between the road users really existing. So and now I give you some typical safety deficits we found out during our audits, and yes, that's the main safety deficits, and I made a difference between urban roads and later outside built-up areas, rural roads, and so I will show you some pictures. I think it's maybe impressive. Yeah, here you can see the insufficient recognizability. There it's an urban road, an urban intersection, and the parking cars doesn't allow you to show the intersection, to see the junction. And a potential solution is to forbid the parking before and after the intersection, but that's not the only solution. There are, of course, another ones, but that's an idea. And if you do an audit and you see, okay, there's parking allowed, then you have to read it in the audit report that you have to check if it's possible that parking is forbidden or will be forbidden. Okay. Then here is an insufficient comprehensibility of the right of way. Of course, you have this yield sign, but the width of the street might give you the sign to you, oh, I have the priority of right, the right of way. So it would be better if you do a small island in the middle of the minor road, put a stop sign on the right side if it's necessary, and mark a white stripe that you know, okay, I have to stop here. And of course, if an auditor get a plan of the left one picture, so really a design plan, and he see, okay, that is insufficient, then he has to mark it in the audit report. Pedestrian facilities are very important in urban roads, at urban junctions, so there are different between the right and the left picture, of course. So it's very important for the pedestrians that they are getting safe facilities, because the accidents with pedestrian and cyclists are not as pedestrian facilities, cyclist facilities, but accidents with pedestrians and cyclists are often fatal. Here's a solution for missing indivisibility, so you have to check if maybe motorists can see cyclists, pedestrians, and so on. And here is the helpful signalization with the protected left turn and on the right side, and the unprotected left turn on the left side. And now some examples of rural roads, only a few pictures I want to get in detail. I think they are self-explaining, these pictures. Here the recognizability isn't possible. Then you have make it clear that there is a junction on the top. Missing indivisibility. If cars are able to stand next together, then the car driver who wants to turn right can't see the other road users from left, because the other car are in the view of them. The potential solution is here, this little island. So yes, that you can't, so that car users can't stand next together. Yes, that is another example for insufficient comprehensibility. On the left picture, you see a street. The street who is on the left side, came afterwards as another one, but the right of way has changed. So, and if you plan this intersection, you have to check, and the auditor has to check if the insufficient comprehensibility is not yet available. So, and other solutions, I won't go into in detail. You can't see it. Missing lane for left turning indicators. And here another example for protected and unprotected left turn. So now I brought a design plan with me. It's an example what an auditor can find out when he do an audit of an intersection. And I hope you can see it. I put some details then if I go into detail. So, but here it's roundabout, as you can see, and underneath the roundabout, under the roundabout is another junction. It's not signalized. It's with priority with signs, so it's marked. And so the auditor gets this plan together with other plans, of course, but here it's a layout plan. You can find the most deficits during an audit. In this case, and here are some facts to the plan. There's a federal road, and here's a shopping center next to the federal road, and the junctions in the south of the roundabout makes it possible to get into the shopping center, or to get to the parking spaces to the shopping center. The first thing an auditor would mention is there's no cycle routing and pedestrian routing. No, so it's near Greater City. It's near Tom. I'll show you. This sign means it's the entry of a city, yeah. But the roundabout is outside of this city, yes, of course, and it's possible that cyclists and pedestrians came to the shopping center, so there's no pedestrian facilities or cyclist facilities available, so the auditor has to mention it. Then another point is there are 4 legs within this roundabout, but yeah, every leg is different. Every exit is different. The north one is without any island, according to the other 3 ones, and in the south there's a bypass. So the auditor has to say, oh, it's to examine if the northern approach could get designed consistently to the other approach, and that means, yeah, in the same way to the southern approach. This is to check if it's possible to design these 4 legs consistently. Then Mr. Freelon mentioned it. There are some parameters you have to regard, and in the guideline of roundabout there is a distance of the outside diameter, and it says, or it must be the 50 meters maximum, but here we've got 60 meters, so the auditor would say the outside diameter of the roundabout island is to review, of course. And on the other way, the width of the circulating lane of the inner circle lane of the roundabout is too small. Yeah, there's a guideline parameter with 6.5 meters, and here in the example there are only 5.75 meters. So the width of the circulating lane is to check, of course. They are marking inside the circulating lane, and that is absolutely not compliant to the guidelines. And yeah, I jump over this slide, but the next one, in the approach to in the west, now in the east there are many agriculture approaches, and near to the roundabout it's of course dangerous. So it's to check. It's only twice, but it's to check for the planner and to review if the agricultural approach could get maybe concentrated or to another location as well. Mr. Freelon mentioned it's in Germany it's not state of the art. It's forbidden to build out 2 lanes in the exit roads, but here in this example there are 2 lanes, so that is not compliant to the guidelines, and the auditor has to say, okay, here please check this or please review this, and that is not compliant. Yes, that is very special. In the south you have markings. Yeah, you have some arrows which say you can turn left, but of course if you drive or if you go to a roundabout, it's of course not allowed to go left. In England, Great Britain of course, but not in Germany. Okay, there are protection facilities. They are not necessary. They have no effect here in this position. So they are needless, or they are need them, and so it's checked for the planner if they could prepare. Here's an example for the drain of water. There's an island between the circulating lane and the bypass lane, and to check if the water from the circulating lane could flow through the island and the bypass lane outside of the junction. So it's only an advice to the planner of the from the auditor that he has to verify the train of water. And other examples too. Here the training of the right of the left of the west approach is also to check. So I hope I give you with in this example an example how important such an audit is. Mr. Bernardo gave you the general information I showed you and some details, and yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to contact me to ask me afterwards. Thank you very much.
Θα κλείσουμε με την τελευταία παρουσίαση των νούμερο Smart που θα αφορά άτομα με ειδικές ανάγκες ή άτομα με ειδικές, θα έλεγα όχι τόσο πολύ ανάγκες, αλλά είναι βρίσκονται κάτω από κίνδυνο ατυχήματος λόγω αντίληψης όπως είναι μικρά παιδιά και σε κόμβους, και θα μας δείξει τη βρετανική εμπειρία πάνω σε αυτό.
Okay, right. Everyone hear me? If I'm even shorter than the last speaker. Right, part two of my presentation. What I said earlier, I was going to talk about vulnerable road users. These are what in the UK we would term as vulnerable road users. Arguably, many of them are pedestrians, but they're different type of pedestrians. They have a range of disabilities. So, in a way, I've broken down my presentation into two areas. I'm going to talk about pedestrians, and that will cover children, the elderly, the mobility impaired, blind or partial sighted, and then I will also talk about cyclists as well. Just a quick refresh. In my first presentation, I talked about these two documents and how these two documents are beginning to change the face of the local road networks in our country. How the principles that have been developed through understanding and research work which has been undertaken has given us a slightly different perspective on the way that our roads have functioned. Over the last 40 odd years, we've looked at providing for vehicles and ensuring that there was sufficient visibility and stopping sight distance so that the vehicles could interact with other vehicles and other people on the road to give them sufficient visibility. What we've seen over time, I think, and some of that is down to what we've seen in the change in the vehicle fleet and the vehicle technology, is that road speeds have increased. Traffic has become the primary mover on many of our streets, and we wanted to redress the balance to lower the risk to our other users and create a more friendly environment for the communities that live on and around the streets that are necessary for us to go about our daily business. So a quick review of the aims of Manage the Streets. It was about, really, truly about bringing a fundamental change, a transformation in the quality of our streets out there, to provide a well-connected network, a network that is safe for people to live and play on those streets. It was also about inclusivity of design, providing an environment where a whole host of individuals with different abilities, different ages, could feel as safe as one another on those streets. So what the FMS approach offers is a permeability of layout, the ability for individuals to walk or cycle, the local amenities, to give them good access to public transport, to put them in an environment where they are relatively safe with other users, that they would not feel at risk when they encountered a vehicle on those road networks, to create safe areas to play, and again to contribute to that health agenda. I think it's not only the UK that's suffering from obesity and you know, the population reducing the amount of exercise that they have. And the MFS approach again redresses the balance and gives them the opportunity as an individual to walk or cycle the streets that they live in. So again, the type of junctions I'm going to look at are junctions without priority, priority junctions, signalised junctions and roundabouts. And I hope to demonstrate through a range of photographs and slides I've got how we're looking to make provision for those users. And indeed, in some of the photographs explain the changes that we're adopting. So if I look at pedestrians first, here's a simple non-priority road, quite close to Martha's actually. What do we see here? Well, walking around the streets of Athens as I did last night, oh, here it is. I saw plenty of this, tactile paving. What I tended to see associated with it was a dropped area of curb, so it took the pedestrian down to the level of the street. What we've done here, with a simple calming measure, we've actually raised the level of the street, raised the level of the road up to the level of the street. So what does that do? Well, it means any car travelling here and wishing to turn into here is ramping up. It means any car coming along here is ramping up. That induces caution in the driver. It means the driver slows down. So at the most important point of this junction, where they're most likely to interchange with pedestrians, they're immediately slowing down. By raising the area, we're giving a slightly different view on priority of the people. That we're saying to the pedestrians, actually you've got equal priority here as you have with the driving, the travelling, the cars. It means that anyone in a wheelchair hasn't got to go, isn't pushed down a ramp onto a road and risking having to hold on to the wheels to slow his approach speed. They're at a similar level. What we've also got here, and if you can see it, if I can get the pointer up again. This green line, this runs from the nearest metro station towards a world-renowned eye hospital called Moorfields Eye Hospital. So again, we're giving direction to partially blind people, directing to the hospital. Here we are again. This is another non-priority road. Well, there's marginal priority here. There's this yield line. But again, this whole junction has been ramped up so that vehicles approaching this will slow down. Exactly at the point that they're likely to encounter pedestrians crossing. Again, we've got tactile areas that direct people to cross, partially sighted people and blind people to cross in the appropriate place. we've got bollards protecting the corner of the junction, stopping anyone parking in this area, so that we're giving pedestrians the appropriate direct access across the junction. And here it is again from another slightly different view, and you can see the ramping up on what is the more major road. Here we have, this is just to the right of this is a T-junction. What we've done here, we've narrowed the carriageway width. You can see that we haven't actually ramped up here because this is a slightly more major road than the previous example. But what we've created here is a narrowing by a build-out and a central island. Now again, this assists young and elderly alike because it's reducing the crossing distance that they have to cross. It also gives them an opportunity to make that they only have to concentrate on one direction of traffic. They can cross to halfway, stop, look the other way. And notice the width of the central island and the hatching that's put there. Again, that the width is there to sufficient width so that a young mother with a pram or a pushchair or young children can stand in that central area feeling relatively safe, knowing that the pushchair she's holding isn't going to project out into the roadway. Here we have again, this is a non-priority junction. Again, a build-out where we're reducing the carriageway width, decreasing the amount of time that individuals have to spend on the road. Again, you can see the tactile paving. In this case, because we haven't ramped up the road area, we've got drop down to allow people to get down and cross the road easy. And again, the area is protected by bollards to stop people parking. What it does do to the left side of it is create a parking area for people. Another priority junction. Again, you can see not only is the side road the road with less priority than the main road, the whole junction has been raised. Again, creating a less riskier environment for those crossing the road. Again, this is another side road and a slightly different treatment here. Again, here we've just raised the level of the side road to the level of the pavement, and rather than bollards, we've protecting the corner with concrete blocks. This is a recent area improvement in London that was undertaken to enhance the quality of this whole area. And any morning that you're walking along that road, the volume of cyclists that use this route is quite astounding. Here we have, and these type of crossings have already been mentioned earlier. This is a zebra crossing. Again, you can see the tactile paving on the approach. We tend to use these either side of a junction to give pedestrians the ability to cross a major road. They are, again, the priority is that the drivers know that as they approach these crossings, if they see a pedestrian standing to the side or on the crossing itself, the pedestrian has priority. Now, about 30 years ago, we undertook a huge research project in London to look at the level of safety between zebra crossings, and what was becoming vogue was to replace these simple zebra crossings with signal-controlled junctions. And when I mean that, I mean you've got signal lights that stop the traffic and allow the pedestrians to cross. I've got a picture I'll show you shortly. What we found was that the zebra crossings were actually safer than the signal control. And that was because what we found in an analysis is, with a zebra crossing, a pedestrian will stand on the side of the road, wait for the traffic to stop before he crosses. With a signal controlled crossing, if he sees the green man, and you'll see what I mean shortly with the green man, if he sees that that green man's there, the pedestrian feels that he's already got priority and will cross without regard to what the traffic is doing on the approaches to the crossing. And there were a number of instances where we had vehicle overruns, killing and severely injuring pedestrians, simply because the car was approaching too fast, the car didn't see the signal, and the pedestrian was taking less heed of what the traffic was doing because he felt that he had the priority with the green man and with the red light that stopped the car. So again, a relatively simple form of crossing, a relatively safe one. And here we see a zebra crossing used between a staggered junction layout. Now we're moving to signal priority. Here's a junction here, and you can see that it's a relatively simply controlled crossroads in a city centre, and you can see the pedestrians. It's on all red phase, so that means that the pedestrians can cross any arm of the junction at the same time, and some of them are choosing to cross diagonally across the junction because that's their shortest route, their pathway that they choose to take. There's some interesting facts about pedestrians at signals. They do look for gaps in traffic. They will not necessarily wait for their priority to cross. They do like to take shortcuts. They're more likely to comply with signals if the traffic is heavy, if they have to wait less than 30 seconds for an opportunity to cross. If other pedestrians are waiting, in other words, they see a queue and they think, oh, I'm due to get that priority shortly. If they're older and they feel now and their mobility impaired. Obviously with mobility impaired, they need longer to cross because of their physical impairment. They may be carrying a heavy object, or if you've got a parent with a young child. Again, I showed this layout earlier. This is the simple sort of facilities, the pedestrian facilities that we would provide a signal crossing. You can see here that we stagger the crossing. We don't make it straight across. Our ideas are slightly changing on this now. This work did tend to be the general practice. The idea of this was to always ensure that the pedestrian was facing the traffic that would be coming towards them. So obviously walking up to this arm here, walking up to the arm, you know, in the UK, you're looking at the traffic coming to your right. You cross, you turn, and again you're looking to the traffic coming towards you, so that you've always got a view of the traffic that is approaching you. Here is a typical example of what we were putting in probably 20 or 30 years ago. You can see down on the column that we've got a push button control. You can see the green man signal that's telling the pedestrians that they've got the right to cross. You can see that we're telling the pedestrians to look right because that's where the traffic will be coming from. What's happening now, and certainly in our urban areas, you see all that guard railing there. That was a way of protecting pedestrians and directing them to the right direction. Much of that now is coming out in our city centres because we found that it really doesn't provide the sort of support the safety that we thought it did 30 years ago. In fact, it restricts movement, and we're finding that by taking it out, it's no less safe than within. And what we're doing is, as part of the Manual for Streets approach, it was about raising the quality of the environment. Clearly, the whole area looks better without that guardrail in there. Here's the push button control that I was talking about. That tells pedestrians whether they can wait and cross. They can pull the head phase up for the demand by pressing that little white button. The photo to the right, you can see, is taken from underneath. If you can see that little cone, that is for our blind and partially sighted pedestrians. The tactile paving will always direct them to the column where that box sits, and what they can do when you get the crossing phase, the green main phase come up. What you hear is an audible sign. You see a green man, a steady green man, which will turn to a flashing green man when time's running out. And all the time, as soon as that pedestrian phase is opened up and people can cross, that cone spins. So someone who's partially sighted, someone who's partially deaf and blind, can hold on to that button and know as soon as he's able to cross the road, because it will start turning. Here's the tactile paving that I was talking about. Again, you can see that it's directing people to where the push button control is, so that a blind person can work their way to that point and check the code. Again, that's just a picture showing a green man phase, and you can see that the opposite side of the junction, it's held, there's red, so the expectation is the pedestrians will cross in two phases. There's the red man. Now this is showing something that we've started to introduce in London. It's new for the UK, not for other countries. In fact, it's quite widely used in the US, but it's actually a countdown timer. So on certain junctions in the London area that's under trial, we get the red man, we then get the green man to cross, and then when time starts running out, we then get a countdown telling people that basically they've got 8 seconds to get across. So when it gets down to 3, you've got to run pretty fast. You saw an earlier picture I showed of a signalised junction where we had people sort of just wandering across the centre of the junction. This was a project that was opened up about a year ago in London, Oxford Circus. Many of you may have heard of Oxford Circus. It's right in the centre of our busiest shopping area in London. It's the crossroads between Regent Street and Oxford Street. Very, very busy, most days of the week. Large numbers of pedestrians and tourists. What they've done, they've actually created the ability to do a diagonal crossing at this junction. So therefore you don't have to, no one has to cross the junction in 2 phases now. If you want to diagonally cross, you get a signal, and the all red phase is sufficient to allow pedestrians, even the slowest pedestrian, to do that in one movement. I talked about roundabouts earlier. Here again is a zebra crossing on the approach to a roundabout. It's the type of facility that we put in. Again, it's supported by tactile paving, and because we haven't raised the area of the roundabout to meet the level of pavement, obviously we've got drop curbs to take the pedestrians down to the level of the road. But it is one of the best forms of facilities on a roundabout, because it's not brought in it's not a phased entry. It's only utilised. The traffic is only stopped on the approach when there's someone wanting to cross. This is one of the other arms of that roundabout where we haven't got a zebra crossing in, But again, what you can see is a central island, which means that pedestrians can make that into. They haven't got to worry about watching the traffic from two directions and judging whether one of the a car approaching from one of is going to make a manoeuvre around the roundabout and turn into their path. They can actually cross halfway and then do the second half of the road by just concentrating on one flow of traffic, line of traffic. Here we have a slightly bigger roundabout, slightly busier roundabout, and a distance back, some 20-25 metres back, we've got a signalised facility, a pedestrian crossing. Here's the plan of a very interesting crossing facility that we've been developed. This is on a relatively busy road in an urban area. You can see that on one side, that's a McDonald's and a filling station. Very interesting. On the other side of the road, where it says housing, what's in the middle of that housing is a school. Now, before McDonald's was opened, there was hardly any pedestrian movement across that arm of that roundabout. As soon as McDonald's opened, strangely enough, before school, at lunchtime and at the end of the school, there's hundreds of children using that arm of the junction to cross the McDonald's. I can't imagine why, but there you go. So we needed to put something in. We needed to put a facility in. You can see there that the yellow line is a footway and cycle path. And we also had locally, just further down the road, we also had a bridle way, which is it's an equestrian route. So what we actually did here was combine all modes of crossing and an at-grade crossing. And you can see here that the crossing is capable of taking cyclists, people on foot and horses. And to the right-hand side of the picture, you can see the pedestrian call buttons, but they're actually set a lot higher. Those are for the horse riders as they come down the bridle path, but they don't have to dismount to press the button to gain a priority to cross. So that's pedestrians. I mean, that really is a very quick run through all the sorts of facilities that we provide. But just a quick look at cyclists. Cycle controlled crossing here. As you can see, this is in the centre of London, City of London, and you can see the levels of cycling that we're now achieving in the city. This is actually a road junction. One way it's for all traffic. The other way it's for cycling and pedestrians only. You can see again that what we've done is we've ramped up either side. This is a bus route as well, so the ramp is designed to allow buses to come up to the level. What we've created here is a very wide crossing to allow a large movement of pedestrians and cyclists across a main road. This is what we call advanced stopping area for cyclists and powered two-wheelers. There's a lot of these on our signal control junctions. What it means is that you haven't got, when the signals go red and you've got traffic building up, you haven't got cyclists and motorcyclists in amongst the cars and the lorries. They actually get priority to move up to an area, so that when the signals turn green, they move off first. And you can see on the left-hand side, across the junction, there's actually a cycle lane that's marked out along that road. Again, we've got fairly wide central island so that pedestrians, and this is where we've changed it, so now it's a straight across junction rather than a staggered pedestrian facility. But the central area is wide enough so that adults with young children and prams and pushchairs feel quite happy to wait there and do the crossing in two actions. Here you can see a stop sign in action. In fact, some of the cyclists are ahead of even the full stop sign. But again, this is a signal control junction with full pedestrian facilities and facilities for cyclists. This is it's not very clear, but on the far side of that junction there is a cycle route that comes down the road. We bring cyclists and pedestrians into a single crossing point, and then they have got their own cycle signal as well as a pedestrian signal. Now this is a joint one, but there are instances where we would put this in on a signal junction, a separate cycle facility through a junction, and they would be signalised as well. And this is the latest development in London. This is it's interesting, the colour change. In Germany it's red for cycleways, so I can only assume if you caught a cyclist on one of your red areas, he was probably British. Green areas, he was probably British, because all our cycleways are normally green. If we identify a cycle route on the road, we tend to indicate with green. In London, our Mayor Boris Johnson is a very active cyclist, and when he came to power, he said he was going to put down a network of what we call super cycle highways, which not only gives cyclists a route to the junction, but through the junction as well. And you can see this is a picture of one of the first ones that was opened earlier this year, and they're coloured blue. Maybe something to do with the fact that his party is blue, but I don't know. A permanent marker. It'd be interesting if Ken gets back in 2 years' time, will he go out and paint the man red? I don't know. And again, probably the most important slide I'll show today. This is a picture of the website where all the guidance, all the best practice documents about everything I've shown you today can be accessed from by purely looking at the topics and filtering down on the various filter systems. You can even filter down, if you're only interested in right turning facilities at roundabouts, then you can filter down and pull up the documents that are associated with that. And then finally, once again, a reminder of those key documents that I've talked about today. These are direct links to those sites and where those documents can be found. Thank you very much.
Τελείωσε και το δεύτερο μέρος. Πριν κλείσουμε τη σημερινή εκδήλωση, έχουμε λίγο χρόνο τουλάχιστον για το δεύτερο αυτό μέρος να κάνουμε κάποιες ερωτήσεις, οι οποίες, όπως είδατε, αφορούν, θα έλεγα, μας αφορούν άμεσα, διότι για το μέλλον, δεδομένου ότι αρχίζουν σιγά σιγά και τα ποδήλατα και μπαίνουν στη ζωή μας και θα πρέπει να προσέξουμε πώς θα σχεδιάσουμε τους ποδηλατόδρομους, ιδιαίτερα σε εκτελεστικές κόμβων, καθώς επίσης και τα θέματα ελέγχου των μελετών μέσα από τη διαδικασία του όρου. Επομένως, είμαστε στη διάθεσή για να απαντήσουμε σε ό,τι ερωτήσεις θέλετε.
The example shown in Germany with the shopping center and the roundabout, it's a very, very bad example of bad design. Is it not the responsibility of the designer, all this, to follow the guidelines, or even the authorities who review it to check it, and there's a need for a third control by a knowledge safety audit?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, of course it's a task of the designer to look if the plan, if the design is safety, but not only safety, if it is okay regarding the costs, regarding the environment and so on. Yeah, but This is an example. Of course, it's not safe. It's not according to the guidelines, and yeah, planners, designers do, of course, mistakes. That is clear. And the task of the auditor is to check if there are any deficits regarding the road safety, of course. But if all the planners would be perfect, we need a road safety auditor. Yeah.
Okay, some additional remarks. Remember, maybe I told about the quality management, to rise the quality of planning. I think the audit procedures will help to get in future better qualities of planning. What we presented you was real life, and maybe the next time the planner will check his planning and say, oh, there's an auditor, he will check you. I think that will be a start up for better planning, quality management.
We see that design is evolving very rapidly. The colors are changing, the configurations are changing. The new people that are getting their license now, probably at some point the regulation will catch up with them, the teaching will catch up with them. What about those that have already taken their license and will not have it renewed for 5, 10, 15, whatever, 15 years, 30 years? Do you see any problem with that? How is it handled, by some policy campaigns or more formally?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be a problem when we've got, and a bigger problem that I think is we're generally seeing across Europe with what I see an increasing number of ageing driver population. It is a worry. Certainly the UK government have recognised that problem, and we certainly do publicity. We've not got to the stage where we're actually forcing people to go through re-examination or retesting. Once you've got your driving licence, you are responsible to keep yourselves up to date with changing policies and ideas out on the road. But of course, we all know everyone's human. I can't remember the last time that I looked at what we call the highway the highway guide that taught, that gives new drivers information about what they have to learn to pass the test. But we try, certainly when there's a major change in policy and guidance, we try to publicise that fact. Again, I've looked at this in the past. There is a real issue across Europe about consistency. Certainly not necessarily in general signing. I think that we've got to a stage with there is a cohort of signing that every country uses that is fairly standardised. But certainly when it comes to colouring highways for certain things, there is disparity right across Europe. And certainly in the UK, anything red is seen as an area that you shouldn't cross. We use green for cycleways. However, it's just one of those. There's not been a standardisation, and it is a real issue. And I'm not quite sure how we get over it unless we, dare I say it, we have further European directives instructing us what colours to paint our highways.
I think I will ask a more general question that the material that has been presented here before. But this is of very vital importance to our everyday practice. one of the practices that we have here, and it tends to have an extensive application, whether right or wrong, I shall not comment right now, is the undertaking of measures trying to reduce the speed in case of intersection approaches. One of them refers to speed humps and speed bumps. Now, speed humps are some type of elevations that actually deprive the driver from developing speed when he approaches particularly critical sections of roadways. We have this possibility because we have some specifications that I would say are strict to the application of such a measure in secondary roads where we don't have public transportation vehicles going on. This is one of the things that we're being criticized right now. Public transportation vehicles, they say, should be able to use such intersections and such measures existing at intersections. Now, the question is, how is this compatible with highway safety? Because of the fact we have a lot of groups of people who are using mass transportation and they are elderly and handicapped. They are probably some people who have specific needs and all these. So I would like to have a question and an answer to this question and the opinions of the gentlemen here, if they would like to give us an opinion of their practice, their local practice in their countries. Thank you very much.
We first started developing what we would term traffic calming features in the mid-70s, which started out as simple humps and bumps that we put down on mainly residential streets to slow down traffic on those streets. We've moved on a lot in 30 years. There's still a fair amount of those in the UK on residential streets, but we have got the ability now to design table design that is quite capable of being run over and through by public transport vehicles. In fact, all of those slides I showed you today were on routes where public transport vehicles operate, and they operate quite successfully at minimum discomfort to passengers, I would say. In fact, I regularly ride a bus that travels along a route that's got those junction tables in. They are by far, I mean, they are a development of the humps and bumps that we first started putting in the mid-70s. But the bus that I travel on can travel over those tables without any discomfort to the local passengers on the bus, whether you're sitting or standing. So I think it's about what we've managed to achieve over that period. We've learned as designers to come up with alternative methods. I mean, there's another alternative method that I didn't show on the slides that we actually chicane and create a false yield line on a road link and change the priority of traffic. So it's not a vertical change, it's a horizontal change, which again breaks down the flow of the speed of traffic along that route. It doesn't reduce the capacity, but it slows the speed down. It makes drivers think about what they're doing when they're travelling down the road. I don't know if may I have a follow-up for this? I completely agree with you with the fact that we actually practiced it a lot, and we found out that, first of all, the type of designs that were applied here were not the right designs. In most cases, we had speed bumps, not speed humps. And those speed bumps were totally inappropriate for those vehicles to come over them. Now, what we actually did, and what came out of the practice here, was that the horizontal zigzag, instead of the vertical zigzag, was much more successful in actually
vehicles avoid their speeding up in residential streets. So that has been the result of our practice. Thank you very much.
I think I agree with you what you told us about the development over the last decades. But additionally, I would repeat my opinion that we are still far away from a common European approach. That means these kind of speed calming are national measures still. Sometimes we know these are better, these are maybe more convenient, it's clear, we have international experience, we change our knowledge, but if you are a driver and drive through Europe, you find quite different solutions. So I think it's maybe a task for our community to come to closer and consistent solutions.
Ανέφερε ο Ανδρέας ότι υπήρξαν ατυχήματα ποδηλατών με πεζούς. Δεν ξέρω αν το κατάλαβα καλά.
Mr. Bismarck, you referred to accidents between bicyclists and pedestrians. Could you just give us some more details about that? Especially where fatal accidents or injury. No, on generally, when you showed us a case by transposing the cyclist away from the sidewalk to the pavement.
Yes.
Because you mentioned that there are accidents between bicyclists and pedestrians, so it sounds peculiar to say that there are accidents between cyclists and pedestrians.
Okay, maybe I've understand me maybe wrong. Fatal accidents between cyclists and pedestrians are not so often because the speed of cyclists are not so high. But accidents between cars, private cars, or heavy vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists are often fatal. So it's very important for design or for planning and for auditors too to have a special view on pedestrians and cyclists. And many deficits between the guidelines and the real design plan are within the pedestrian and cyclist facilities. So if you check a plan as an auditor, you have to have a special look. But of course there are accidents between cyclists and pedestrians too. But yeah, in only a few cases I think there are fatal issues. But of course there are accidents, yes, and there are conflicts. And if you make an audit you have to view on this case too.
I think from our understanding, our guidelines provide the best solutions also in the matter of best solutions for road safety. That means the auditor always have to check, is that what I see on the planning in accordance with the guideline? That is his first task, I think, and if this part is realized, we can. I think that would be a best solution in this case, in most cases, and in residential areas, or sometimes the spaces are not available for pedestrians and cyclists together. We should have to create solutions customize solutions for these situations and to discuss it with the client. But also in this case, the auditor has to point his finger on the situation, please check it.
Perhaps I would like to ask one question about the safety audit. You said before you need the guidelines, but between the various versions or updates of the guidelines, the science is advancing. So if the auditor knows that something is not in the guideline, but still is dangerous, because we have research results, studies, experience, and so on, how this influences the decision first? And the second question is about the legal issues. If something goes wrong, or the auditor does not write it down, although from a technical point of view it was wrong, does this mean that it has any responsibility if it's an accident?
Okay. For the last situation, we discussed what is about the responsibility for the auditors and the client. We found solutions in Germany where the responsibilities are not changed. That means the responsibility for realization is still by the client. So the auditor should not be anxious about his doing one step in jail or some things like that. People discussed about responsibilities with the auditor. That is not our solution. The overall responsibility is in the hand of the client. So I think only if the auditor does it work a little bit superficial, not correct, he is in the same responsibility as any engineer doing his job not correctly. That is concerning the responsibility of auditors. And for the first question, I mentioned that the auditors, I think they act on the top of the range of planners and designers. So we introduced these yearly meetings, and we think auditors should always on the top of the state of the art. I think they should read newspapers, or they should go to this transport advice portal maybe, and they should always know about the newest developments. And we provide these meetings. You have to go to this meeting twice in 3 years. And from this point of view, we want to assist this process that the auditors are on the top of the edge, they define their working. So I think the other question is if there's a guideline and there are new findings, how you have to react on this. You have to plan, the planner have to plan according to the current guidelines. But if the auditor knows that this current guideline is insufficient in any items concerning traffic safety, you have to point it out for the client and say, this planning is according to the guideline, but in this guideline we have a new research work, there's a kind of deficit concerning traffic safety, and then he gives this problem back to the client, and the client has to decide current guideline or new research findings, things like this. This is also, I told, embedded in the planning system and the judicial framework, I think.
τότε θα πρέπει να κλείσουμε εδώ, να ευχαριστήσουμε για την παρουσία σας. Ελπίζω να άξιζε και την επόμενη φορά θα ελπίζουμε πάλι να ξεκινήσουμε κάτι ανάλογο, παίρνοντας τις ευαισθησίες σας, ακούγοντας αυτά που μας λέτε όσον αφορά τις ανάγκες σας και να οργανώσουμε κάτι ανάλογο. Τελειώντας, θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω όλους τους ξένους συναδέλφους που είχαν την καλοσύνη να έχουν και να μας παρουσιάσουν τα αποτελέσματα από τις χώρες τους και ας χειροκροτήσουμε μια τελευταία φορά.
Αυτό θα το κρατήσουμε κιόλας, έτσι. Ναι.